Greetings, dear ladies. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. My partner steps away. This sisterhood is changing. What you think you're here for may very well be different from what you're really here for. The history that is spiritual, that you are part of, and you are part of it, had many attributes and elements that you're beginning to remember. I speak to a group tonight who is here because some of you know absolutely that in the past you were involved in something unique and you feel it. You wouldn't be sitting in the chair unless you were at least curious. And this thing that you felt was you were part of something that you will call a beginning. But more than just a beginning, it was instructions on everything that was coming. Everything. Back in those days and those times, so simple compared to today. Imagine a time when you didn't even have writing or books, when everything was brand new. All of the knowledge that you were given had never been given. And you were being shown and taught so many different things. This rings with so many of you. Imagine back then what you were thinking. How would you use what was being taught? What did the Star Mothers say about what you were being taught? You had no concept that perhaps, just perhaps, many thousands of years later, in a female body, yet again, on purpose, in these days past 2012, you would be starting to ask yourself questions. And when you would hear that of Lemuria, that would ring to you in a certain way, still not certain of why or where or how, but you knew there was an alliance with the name. The name actually was slightly different back then, but enough of it survived that today, when you hear the name, there's something inside that says, well, now that belongs to something within me. The name belongs to something within me. And here you are, ready to find out perhaps what more there would be to show and tell. And so far, so good. The many years that the sisterhood has been established are only about that, establishment. You see, I'm going to give you information today. Women, you're here to hear it, but it's not for you. It's for Meliha. Occasionally, we'll give a channel that is different. The sisterhood is extremely important to this planet. It's important because the very name, the energy, starts to resound with hundreds, if not thousands, of women who are asking the same as you are as you sit here. They may never meet Meliha in person as you see her now, but they'll still have a connection with the technology today. The only way they'll know is to listen. The only way they'll be taught is to listen. And through that technology, the idea is they will be shown things they didn't expect. There is a limit to how many things you can do, Meliha, from now on. If you stay as it is, and it continues as it is, there will come a saturation point where everyone has heard everything. What do you do next? So let me introduce what you do next. I sat next to Meliha and Kahuna Kale some years ago. My partner was between the two women in Hawaii, Lemuria. And he had a download while he was channeling. Now, this is a bit different. The channeling that he experiences, as he is now, is a kind of a meld between that which is myself, that is, the Kryon, and that which is his consciousness that allows a seamless delivery. But it's not a download. That particular name is a current name. You're used to it. It comes then from your technology. It's a dump of information. And that's what he got. And it was because he was between two shamanic energies, two women who had been through the Lemurian experience as shamans. And in that channel outspilled a truth that had never been spoken before. And it came right from the consciousness of the women next to him. He presented, through them and myself, the information of the Lemurian teaching wheel. This teaching wheel has not yet been developed as it should be, for it's different. The teaching has to be different. There has to be a sacredness within it which is different from anything he does in seminars so far. This is his learning curve, and he is part of that and experimenting with it. But here's what I want to tell you. As profound as the information was in that teaching wheel, I have dropped hints along the way. There was something else. This teaching wheel is truly a summary of information. It's a wheel etched upon with codes and purpose that the Star Mothers used to teach the children, the adults. It was double-sided. Each side meant something else. One side for children, one side for adults. The spokes of the wheel, we identified each of them. We told you what all of them meant. We told you the numerology of the wheel, the proportions of the wheel. All of that information now is coming out and is known, and little by little, the general public will understand what that teaching wheel represents. Core information for the planet. But along the way, I said something else. I've said it now more than 2 times. And yet there's been no questioning by Meliha about what it was. And yet it was right there in front of her. Now the man in the chair and the woman in the chair are both very stubborn. And they will admit they are. And quite often in their lives, they have to have others tell them what the next step is, even though they are the ones living it. And then there are some things outside of their control. And those things outside of their controls is the working of spirit. Ladies, I know some of you have experienced this. Let me give you an axiom. Sometimes when things are not working exactly correct, Spirit will get you into a position where there'll be things shut down in front of you in a way that for a moment or two you'll ask yourself, what have I done wrong? Only to realize that it's a snowplow getting things out of the way that you thought would work. And suddenly they don't. It's an opening for you to say, what is next? Or what is there I haven't thought of? And that is the place where the sisterhood is today. Indeed, it is complete and beautiful in all things, but the real teaching starts now. I've hinted at this a number of times. The reason the women are sitting here, Meliha, is because they were taught separately from the others. The teaching wheel was for men and women and children and adults. But at a certain point, I have told you, the women were taught separately than the others, than the men, because the women were taught shamanism. Question that no one has ever asked. Where is the shamanic teaching that is separate from the teaching wheel? And today I'll tell you. Meliha, there was another wheel, and it is the shamanic teaching wheel. And you taught it. And you're going to teach it again. 3 days ago, my partner in his home was unable to sleep. At that magic time that he sometimes dreads, which is in your clock called 3:30, his eyes popped open. And he realized there was more than he and his partner in the room. And a download was given to him of all of the details of the shamanic wheel. So that those can be given then, not tonight and not to the group, but to Meliha privately. Because this is what she's going to be doing next. Doesn't this make sense? You're here for shamanic teaching. The sisterhood all over the planet is preparing to hear shamanic teaching, not simple songs and ceremony. There's another wheel, and that wheel's so similar. It has 5 spokes, it has a hub, it has a rim, and all of the spokes are named and titled for the shamanic teaching of women. And this will be given to Meliha to do with what she sees fit. But this is the next step. It had to wait till now. And if you ask her privately, she'll tell you there's some things that have fallen away that she thought would work. There are some things that perhaps are not working exactly as she thought in that scheme that she had of teaching. And now she sits next to me and she realizes why. Because to replace anything she thought, a paradigm perhaps of even presentation, comes something new. This shamanic teaching wheel is profound. It's for women. And each spoke will be taught by her. But each spoke, in the case of the shamanic information, has so much information she can teach it for years and never cover the same thing. Because it's driven by dynamics. It's driven by current events. It's driven by personality. That is shamanic teaching. Not just facts and numbers, but how you deal with this and this and this. For a shaman is one who stands and has to deal with a changing world of paradigms in life, just like a woman has to deal with children. It's different every day, isn't it? And as they grow up, they start to mature and they start to change, and the problems then are different, aren't they? And so there is no manual that says, do this and do that, Mom. And that's the difference between the genders. The women are built with intuition that can change quickly, who will recognize situations and what to do, not just as a mother, but as a teacher. There is wisdom in raising children that you learn. It is the same kind of paradigm and wisdom that you would have to teach other human beings about life itself, about the things that perhaps they need to know from somebody who is wiser. All of you here have experienced some of these things to certain degrees. But this is the shamanic teaching wheel. Different from the main one, private, which will not be revealed in public, but only to her. And she will then start to reveal it in whatever fashion she wishes to as she teaches the spokes and realizes the depth that is in each one, and how it will open that which is avenues of understanding for women and avenues of teaching for women, and things that will make your heart so happy to be here when you say, this is why I came. That is the beginning of the next phase, Meliha, of your life, of this group, and of many, many hundreds of women to come who will find these things soothing to their soul and start to remember the wisdom that they were originally taught. That's enough. And so it is.